The evening air carried a chill as Lily Chen rushed down the street, her worn messenger bag bouncing against her hip. She was already 10 minutes late for her shift at Bellamy's, the fanciest restaurant in town where she had been working for the past 8 months. Tonight was the Hamilton party, a private event that the entire staff had been dreading for weeks. "Sorry. So sorry," Lily mumbled as she slipped through the back entrance, nearly colliding with Pete, the dishwasher who had worked at Bellamy's for over 20 years. "They're looking for you," Pete warned, nodding toward the office where Diane, the floor manager, was tapping her foot and checking her watch. "Chen, finally." Diane handed her a freshly pressed black uniform. "Change quickly. The Hamiltons reserved the entire place tonight, and Mr. Hamilton already called twice to make sure everything will be perfect." Lily nodded, rushing to the staff bathroom to change. As she pulled her long, dark hair into a tight bun, she caught her reflection in the mirror. Dark circles had formed under her eyes, evidence of late nights spent practicing piano pieces she feared she might never perform professionally. 3 years at music school, countless competitions won, and yet here she was, serving overpriced steak to people who would never know or care about her dreams. The crushing student debt made sure that her beloved piano, once the center of her life, had become a luxury she could rarely indulge. The small keyboard in her apartment wasn't the same, and the community center piano was always booked by children taking lessons. "Focus," she told herself, straightening her collar. "Just get through tonight." When she emerged, the kitchen was already buzzing with activity. Chef Antoine was shouting orders while line cooks moved with practiced precision. The special menu for tonight featured delicacies that cost more than Lily made in a day. "Listen up, everyone." Diane gathered the serving staff for a quick briefing. "The Hamiltons are celebrating their son's engagement. 45 guests, all high profile. Richard Hamilton is one of our biggest clients and a major investor in this part of town. He can be—" She paused, searching for a diplomatic word. "Particular about service. Just stay professional, keep the glasses full, and don't draw attention to yourselves." The staff exchanged knowing glances. Richard Hamilton's reputation preceded him. Old money, big ego, and a tendency to treat service workers like they were invisible unless he needed something. "Lily, you're handling tables 4 through 7. That includes the bride's parents and some family friends." Diane handed her a seating chart. "Don't mess this up." The guests began arriving at 7, filling the restaurant with expensive perfumes and loud laughter. Lily moved efficiently between tables, taking drink orders and serving appetizers. She had perfected the art of being present without being noticed, a skill that came in handy during these high-pressure events. As she arranged shrimp cocktails on table 5, Lily couldn't help but notice the beautiful grand piano positioned in the corner of the dining room. Bellamy's occasionally hired pianists for special events, but tonight the instrument sat silent, gleaming under the soft lighting. Her fingers itched just looking at it, a Steinway Model B, something she had only played once during a special showcase at school. "More water here," demanded a sharp voice, snapping her from her thoughts. Richard Hamilton sat at the head table, scowling at his empty water glass. He was in his 60s, with a full head of silver hair and a face that had likely never known physical labor. His custom suit probably cost more than 6 months of Lily's rent. "Right away, sir," Lily responded, hurrying to fill his glass. As she poured, she noticed him studying her face with uncomfortable intensity. "You look familiar," he said, frowning. "Have you served us before?" "Yes, sir. At your company's holiday party last December." He nodded dismissively, already turning his attention elsewhere. Lily moved back to her assigned section, relieved to be out of his sightline. The evening progressed with the mechanical precision that these events always had. Appetizers, salads, main courses, wine pairings carefully selected to impress. Throughout it all, Lily maintained her professional smile, even as her feet began to ache and a dull headache formed behind her eyes. During a brief moment of respite in the kitchen, she overheard 2 of the other servers talking. "He sent back the lobster because it was looking at him wrong," Thomas whispered, rolling his eyes, and then complained that his replacement came too quickly, implying we had it ready because we knew the first one was bad. "Classic Hamilton," sighed Rita, adjusting her bow tie. "His wife seems nice enough, though. At least she says please and thank you." Lily listened silently, gathering her strength before heading back out. As she pushed through the swinging doors, her eyes once again drifted to the piano. For a moment she allowed herself to imagine sitting there, fingers dancing across the keys, playing one of the Chopin nocturnes that used to make her old professor tear up. Reality came crashing back when she heard the distinct sound of glass shattering. At table 6, a guest had knocked over a full glass of red wine, sending it cascading across the white tablecloth and onto the floor. "I'm so sorry," the woman gasped, clearly embarrassed. "It's no problem at all," Lily assured her, already using napkins to contain the spill. She signaled to Thomas, who quickly brought fresh linens while she cleaned up the mess. As she knelt to wipe the floor, she heard Richard Hamilton's voice carrying from the next table. The help these days, he was saying loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. No grace, no refinement. Not like when I was growing up. Our household staff knew what they were doing. Heat rose to Lily's cheeks, but she kept her eyes down, focusing on the task. This wasn't the first time she'd heard such comments, and it wouldn't be the last. The trick was to let the words slide off, to remember they said more about the speaker than about her. When dessert was finally served, an elaborate cake decorated to celebrate the engagement, Lily allowed herself to believe the worst of the evening was behind her. Just coffee service and cleanup, and then she could go home, kick off her shoes, and maybe treat herself to a glass of the cheap wine she kept for particularly difficult days. That's when she noticed Richard Hamilton watching her again, this time with a calculated look that made her uneasy. He leaned over to whisper something to his wife, then to his son, both of whom glanced in Lily's direction with curious expressions. As she refilled coffee cups at table 7, she overheard snippets of conversation from nearby. Guests, music school graduate, working here instead. Must not have been very good. Lily's hand trembled slightly as she realized they were talking about her. Last December at the holiday party, she had briefly mentioned her background to a friendly older woman who turned out to be Richard's sister-in-law. She had forgotten all about that conversation, but apparently someone hadn't. The room suddenly felt too warm, too crowded. Lily retreated to the kitchen, leaning against the cool tile wall and taking deep breaths. "You okay?" asked Rita, passing by with a tray of dessert plates. "Fine," Lily lied. "Just needed a second." Before she could fully collect herself, Diane appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Lily, Mr. Hamilton is asking for you specifically." A knot formed in her stomach. "Did I do something wrong?" "He didn't say. Just go see what he wants and be quick about it." With mounting dread, Lily straightened her uniform and walked back into the dining room. The conversation had dimmed, and many eyes turned toward her as she approached Richard Hamilton's table. "Ah, there she is," he announced, his voice carrying across the now quieter room. "Tell us, young lady, I heard you studied at the Eastman School of Music, is that correct?" Lily swallowed hard, suddenly aware that everyone was listening. "Yes, sir." "I did. Piano, wasn't it?" She nodded, unsure where this was going, but certain it was nowhere good. Richard Hamilton smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. There was something predatory in his expression, like a cat that had cornered a mouse and was now deciding how to play with it before the inevitable end. "How interesting," he said, glancing toward the gleaming piano in the corner, "that someone with such an expensive education would end up serving dinner." The implication hung in the air like a bad smell. A few uncomfortable chuckles rippled through the crowd. Lily stood frozen, feeling the weight of dozens of eyes on her. In that moment, she knew exactly what was coming next. And a cold dread settled in her chest as Richard Hamilton raised his glass, demanding everyone's attention. "I think we would all enjoy some entertainment with our dessert," Richard Hamilton announced, his voice cutting through the murmurs of conversation. He turned to Lily with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Since we have this beautiful piano just sitting here unused, perhaps our musically educated server could favor us with a performance." The room fell silent. Lily felt her cheeks burning as 45 pairs of eyes turned toward her. Her throat went dry, and for a moment, she couldn't find her voice. "I'm working, Mr. Hamilton," she finally managed, her voice barely above a whisper. Richard Hamilton waved his hand dismissively. "I'm sure your manager won't mind." "Would you, Diane?" He looked over at the floor manager, who stood frozen near the kitchen doors. Diane stepped forward, her expression caught between concern for her staff and fear of offending their wealthiest client. "Well, we don't typically—" "Wonderful," Hamilton interrupted as if she had agreed. "It's settled then." Lily glanced desperately at Diane, who gave her an apologetic look that clearly said, "Just do it." "We can't afford to lose his business." I haven't played properly in months, Lily said, trying one last escape. I don't think— Oh, come now, Hamilton cut in, his tone sharpening. Surely all that expensive education wasn't wasted? Unless— He left the sentence hanging, the implication clear. Unless you were never any good to begin with. A few uncomfortable chuckles rippled through the crowd. Hamilton's son looked embarrassed, staring down at his plate while his fiancée whispered something in his ear. Hamilton's wife touched her husband's arm gently as if suggesting he stop, but he ignored her. Please, he said, gesturing toward the piano with an exaggerated politeness that felt like mockery. We're all eager to hear what an Eastman graduate can do. Lily stood frozen, trapped between humiliation and rage. She could feel sweat beading at the back of her neck, her hands trembling slightly at her sides. Every instinct told her to walk out, to tell this man exactly what she thought of him, to preserve whatever dignity she had left. But reality crashed down hard. She needed this job. The rent was due next week. Her student loan payment would automatically withdraw in 3 days. She couldn't afford principals right now. With as much grace as she could muster, Lily nodded. One short piece, then. As she walked toward the piano, the distance seemed to stretch endlessly. The soft murmurs and barely suppressed snickers felt like needles on her skin. She was acutely aware of her waitress uniform, the small stain on the sleeve where someone's sauce had splashed earlier, the practical black shoes that pinched her toes after hours of standing. Behind her, she heard Richard Hamilton stage whisper to his table, "This should be amusing." The Steinway gleamed under the warm lighting, its polished surface reflecting the chandelier overhead. As Lily approached it, a strange calm began to settle over her. Whatever happened next, at least she would touch a real piano again. It had been too long. She sat down on the bench, adjusting its height out of habit. Her fingers hovered over the keys as she took a deep breath. What should she play? Something simple and crowd-pleasing? Something to just get through this ordeal? No. If this man wanted to humiliate her, to use her background as entertainment for his guests, then she would give him a performance he never expected. She placed her hands on the keys and closed her eyes for just a moment. When she began to play, it wasn't the light classical piece or simple melody they probably anticipated. Instead, her fingers found the opening notes of Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor, one of the most technically challenging pieces in the piano repertoire. A composition that had once been the centerpiece of her final recital at Eastman. The first gentle, questioning notes filled the room, deceptively simple. Then, as the piece progressed, her fingers began their dance across the keys, building the complex emotional landscape that had made this piece famous. Technically demanding runs, delicate pianissimo passages that barely disturbed the air, thundering fortissimo sections that made the piano sing with raw emotion. All flowed from her hands as if the months away from a proper instrument had never happened. Somewhere in the back of her mind, Lily registered the complete silence that had fallen over the dining room. No clinking glasses, no whispered conversations, not even the sound of kitchen staff moving about. But she didn't look up. She couldn't break the spell now. The music carried her away from Bellamy's, away from Richard Hamilton and his cruelty, away from the humiliation he had intended. In those moments, she remembered why she had fallen in love with the piano in the first place, how it could speak when words failed, how it could transform pain into beauty. As she approached the final section, the technically murderous coda that had taken her months to perfect, her fingers moved with a confidence and precision that surprised even her. Each note was clear and purposeful, building to the powerful conclusion. When the final notes faded, Lily kept her hands on the keys for a moment, eyes still closed, breathing hard from the emotional and physical exertion. The silence stretched for several seconds before it was broken by a single person beginning to clap. Then another joined in. And another. Lily finally looked up to see the entire room on their feet, applauding with genuine enthusiasm. Several guests had tears in their eyes. The kitchen staff had emerged from the back to witness the performance, and even they were clapping. Chef Antoine nodding with newfound respect. Only Richard Hamilton remained seated, his expression unreadable. His plan had backfired spectacularly. As the applause continued, an elegant older woman made her way toward the piano. She was in her 60s, with silver-streaked black hair pulled into a sophisticated updo, wearing a simple but clearly expensive black dress adorned with a single strand of pearls. "That was extraordinary," she said when she reached Lily. "Absolutely extraordinary. I haven't heard the ballade played with such feeling since I attended Rubinstein's New York concert in my youth. Lily blinked in surprise. Thank you, she managed, still catching her breath. I'm Vivian Park, the woman said, extending her hand. I serve on the board of the Symphony Association. Lily's heart skipped a beat as she shook Vivian's hand. Everyone in the classical music world knew Vivian Park. She was not only on the symphony board but was one of the most influential patrons of the arts in the region. I'd very much like to speak with you when you're finished with your shift, Vivian continued. Do you have a card? No, I don't, Lily admitted. Vivian smiled. No matter. She pulled out a sleek business card and handed it to Lily. Call my office tomorrow. We should talk. As Vivian returned to her seat, Diane approached the piano, her expression a mix of astonishment and professional concern. That was unexpected, she said quietly. Are you okay to continue your shift? Lily nodded, tucking Vivian's card carefully into her pocket. Yes, I'm fine. As she stood up from the bench, she caught Richard Hamilton's eye across the room. His face had flushed a deep red, his jaw clenched in obvious displeasure. His attempt to humiliate her had instead given her a spotlight, and he knew it. For the remainder of the evening, Lily moved through her duties in a daze, still feeling the keys under her fingers, the music in her blood. Guests who had barely noticed her before now smiled and nodded as she refilled their coffee cups or cleared their dessert plates. I had no idea, one woman said warmly as Lily poured her coffee. You're far too talented to be waiting tables, dear. Lily gave a polite smile, unsure how to respond to such comments. What could she say? That talent didn't pay the bills? That the classical music world was impossibly competitive and often closed to those without connections or financial backing? That sometimes dreams had to be set aside for survival? As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Richard Hamilton approached her as she was clearing a table near the entrance. He had put on his overcoat and was preparing to depart with his wife, who stood a few steps away, carefully not watching their interaction. Well, he said, his voice low enough that only Lily could hear. It seems I underestimated you. Lily met his gaze steadily. Yes, you did. He studied her face for a moment as if seeing her clearly for the first time. Then to her surprise, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a crisp $100 bill, placing it on her tray. For the performance, he said stiffly. Lily looked at the money, then back at him. No thank you, Mr. Hamilton. I wasn't performing for tips. She turned and walked away before he could respond, leaving him standing there with his hand still outstretched. It was a small victory, perhaps petty, but it felt necessary, a reclaiming of dignity he had tried to take from her. Later, as the staff cleaned up after the event, Thomas bumped her shoulder gently. That was something else, he said with genuine admiration. You never told us you could play like that. Lily shrugged, wiping down a table. No one ever asked? Well, now everyone's asking, Rita chimed in from nearby. Diane's phone has been ringing nonstop. Apparently 3 different guests want to book you to play at their events. Lily paused, cloth in hand. What? Diane approached, looking both exhausted and oddly pleased. It's true. I've had 4 calls already. The Wilsons want you for their anniversary dinner next month. The Clarks want to know if you're available for a Christmas party. And Mrs. Park asked if we'd be willing to work out an arrangement where you could both serve and perform at select events. She gave Lily a thoughtful look. We could discuss a new pay structure if you're interested. Lily stood speechless, the evening's events finally catching up to her. What had started as an attempt to humiliate her had somehow turned into an opportunity. As she finished her shift and gathered her things to leave, she passed by the piano once more. In the dim after-hours lighting of the restaurant, it seemed to be waiting, patient and knowing. She touched its polished surface lightly, a silent thank you. Outside, the night air was cool on her face as she walked to the bus stop. The weight of Vivian Park's business card in her pocket felt like a promise, or at least a possibility. The morning after the Hamilton party, Lily woke up earlier than usual. Sunlight streamed through the thin curtains of her small apartment as she made coffee, her mind replaying the events of the previous night. The business card Vivian Park had given her sat on her kitchen counter. Lily picked it up, running her thumb over the embossed lettering. This is crazy, she muttered to herself, taking a sip of coffee. Part of her wondered if it had all been a dream. The performance, the applause, Vivian Park's interest. These things didn't happen to people like her. people who had quietly given up on their dreams in favor of practical survival. Her phone buzzed with a text from Rita. "You're famous. Have you seen this?" Attached was a link to a video. Lily clicked it, nearly spilling her coffee when she realized what she was watching. Someone had recorded her piano performance from the night before and posted it online. The video already had thousands of views and hundreds of comments. "Piano Waitress Stuns Snobby Party," read the title. The camera had captured everything. Richard Hamilton's smug expression as he forced her to play, the initial awkwardness, and then the transformation as she lost herself in the music. Whoever had filmed it had managed to catch the perfect angle of both her playing and the guests' reactions, including the standing ovation at the end. Lily's phone rang. "It was Diane from the restaurant. Have you seen it?" Diane asked without preamble. "Just now," Lily replied, still in shock. "Who filmed that?" "One of the younger guests, apparently. Listen, I've had 17 calls this morning. Everyone wants to know about you, about whether you'll be performing regularly." Diane paused. "The owner wants to talk about creating a new position for you, server and resident pianist. It would mean more money." Lily sat down on the edge of her bed, trying to process this information. I need to think about it." "Of course," Diane said. "Take today off. But call me tomorrow, okay? This could be good for all of us." After hanging up, Lily stared at Vivian Park's card again. With shaking fingers, she dialed the number. A professional-sounding assistant answered, and Lily almost hung up out of nervousness. But when she mentioned her name, the assistant's tone immediately warmed. "Oh yes, Miss Park has been expecting your call. She asked me to connect you right away." A moment later, Vivian's elegant voice came through the phone. "Lily, I'm delighted you called. I hope you've recovered from last night's unexpected performance." "Mostly," Lily admitted. "Though someone posted a video of it online and now it's everywhere." Vivian chuckled. "Yes, I've seen it. Nearly 500,000 views already, I believe. The internet does love a good underdog story." Her voice turned more serious. "But that's not why I wanted to speak with you. Your talent is exceptional, Lily. True musical gifts like yours shouldn't be confined to restaurant performances, no matter how well received." Lily swallowed hard. "Thank you. But it's been a while since I've played seriously. Last night was the first time I've touched a proper piano in months, which makes your performance all the more remarkable," Vivian replied. "I'd like you to come to my office today if possible. I have a proposition that might interest you." 2 hours later, Lily found herself in a sleek downtown building, riding an elevator to the 12th floor. She had put on the nicest outfit she owned, a simple blue dress she usually saved for special occasions. Her heart hammered in her chest as the elevator doors opened to reveal an elegant office suite with Park Foundation for the Arts etched on glass doors. The assistant who had answered the phone greeted her warmly and led her to Vivian's office. The room was spacious but tasteful, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of the city. One wall was lined with photographs of Vivian with famous musicians and composers. A small grand piano sat in the corner. Vivian rose from behind her desk to greet Lily. "Thank you for coming on such short notice." "Thank you for inviting me," Lily replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "Please sit down." Vivian gestured to a comfortable chair across from her desk. "Would you like some tea?" After they were settled with steaming cups, Vivian leaned forward slightly. "I'll get right to the point, Lily. The Symphony is launching a new community outreach program aimed at bringing classical music to underserved areas. We need talented musicians who can both perform and connect with diverse audiences. Based on what I saw last night, I believe you would be perfect for this role." Lily nearly choked on her tea. "Me?" "Yes, you," Vivian said firmly. "Your playing has technical precision, but more importantly, it has heart. And after watching how you handled that situation last night, I believe you have the grace and resilience this position requires." "What exactly would the job entail?" Lily asked, trying to keep her excitement in check. "You would give small concerts at community centers, schools, and retirement homes. Teach some basic classes. Participate in our main concert series as part of the ensemble. The position comes with a modest but fair salary, health benefits, and most importantly, access to our practice facilities and instruments." Vivian paused. "It's not a solo career at Carnegie Hall, but it's a musician's life, Lily. A real one." The opportunity seemed too perfect, too miraculous after years of disappointment. Lily searched for the catch. Why me? There are hundreds of better qualified pianists out there. Vivian's expression softened. Perhaps. But last night I saw something special. When you played, everyone in that room felt something. That quality is rare, Lily. Rarer than technical skill alone. She smiled. Besides, your video has become quite popular. The symphony could use a bit of that viral attention. After discussing more details, Lily left Vivian's office with a contract to review and a scheduled audition that was more a formality than a real test. As she stepped out of the building, her phone buzzed again. It was a text from an unknown number. "This is Richard Hamilton's son, Ben. Got your number from the restaurant. Can we meet? I'd like to apologize for my father's behavior." Lily stared at the message, unsure how to respond. Eventually, she agreed to meet him at a coffee shop near her apartment that afternoon. Ben Hamilton looked nothing like his father. Where Richard was all sharp edges and cold confidence, Ben seemed softer, more uncertain. He stood when she entered the coffee shop, waving awkwardly from a corner table. "Thanks for meeting me," he said as she sat down across from him. "I'm really sorry about what my dad did." "It's fine," Lily said automatically, then corrected herself. Actually, it wasn't fine. It was cruel and humiliating, but it worked out okay in the end. Ben nodded, looking genuinely remorseful. He's always been like that, thinking he can control everything and everyone. He stirred his coffee absently. For what it's worth, he's been in a terrible mood all day. Your video is everywhere, and all his friends have been calling to ask about that amazing pianist at his party. Despite herself, Lily smiled at the thought of Richard Hamilton's discomfort. "Well, I guess that's some justice. More than you know," Ben said, lowering his voice slightly. "The woman who approached you after you played Vivian Park? She and my father have been rivals in the arts community for years. She's basically his nemesis. The fact that she discovered you at his party is killing him." Lily couldn't help but laugh. "I had no idea." "There's something else," Ben continued, looking slightly uncomfortable. "My fiancée, Abby. It's her family's company that sponsors the symphony's community programs. She was really impressed by your playing and, well, when she heard about the meeting you had with Vivian today, she may have put in a good word." Lily's smile faded slightly. "So this opportunity, it's not really about my talent. It's about getting back at your father?" "No," Ben looked alarmed. "Not at all. Abby wouldn't do that. She genuinely thought you were incredible. The Park Foundation has strict audition processes. They wouldn't take you if you weren't qualified, no matter who recommended you." He hesitated. "But I thought you should know all the connections. No more surprises." Lily nodded, appreciating his honesty. "Thanks for telling me." As they continued talking, Lily learned more about Ben, how he worked for a non-profit instead of joining his father's business, how he and Abby had met while volunteering at a youth center. He seemed nothing like the entitled rich boy she would have expected. "You know," Ben said as they were finishing their coffees, "my father would never admit this, but you really did shock him last night. He's not used to being wrong about people." "Good," Lily said with a small smile. "Maybe he'll think twice before trying to humiliate someone else." "I doubt it," Ben replied honestly. But at least this time it backfired spectacularly. When they parted ways, Lily felt lighter somehow. Walking home, she allowed herself to really believe for the first time that perhaps her life was about to change. That evening, she received an email from the restaurant. Attached was a formal offer letter, outlining a new position as entertainment coordinator and featured pianist, with a salary that made her eyes widen. Diane had included a personal note. "You deserve this, but if you found something better, we understand." Lily sat on her small balcony, watching the sunset paint the city in gold and pink. Two paths now lay before her: the restaurant job that would provide immediate financial security, or the symphony position that offered a return to her original dream, albeit in a different form than she had once imagined. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Rita, asking if she wanted to celebrate her newfound fame with drinks. Lily smiled and texted back that she'd meet her in an hour. As she got ready to go out, Lily caught her reflection in the mirror. She looked different somehow, standing straighter, eyes brighter. The weight of failed auditions and abandoned dreams seemed lighter on her shoulders. One forced performance had changed everything. But the real change, she realized, had come from within. When pushed to the edge, she hadn't retreated or given a half-hearted performance to just get through the humiliation. Instead, she had shown her true self, played with everything she had. Maybe that was the lesson in all of this, that sometimes the worst moments can lead to the best opportunities, but only if you're brave enough to rise to them. 2 weeks after the night that changed everything, Lily stood outside the community center, watching children file in with their parents. Today was her first official day with the symphony's outreach program, and despite all her years of musical training, she felt completely unprepared. Nervous? Asked Vivian, appearing beside her with 2 paper cups of coffee. She handed one to Lily. Terrified, Lily admitted, accepting the coffee gratefully. Playing for rich people at a fancy party is one thing. Teaching kids who probably don't want to be here on a Saturday morning is something else entirely. Vivian smiled. You'd be surprised. Children are often the most honest audience. They don't pretend to like something just because they think they should. She nodded toward the entrance. Shall we? Inside, 20 children between the ages of 8 and 12 were settling into chairs arranged in a semicircle around an upright piano. Some looked excited, others bored, a few clearly dragged there by determined parents. Lily took a deep breath and stepped forward. Good morning, everyone. I'm Lily Chen, and I'm here to talk about the piano. A small boy in the front row raised his hand immediately. Are you the waitress from the video? Lily blinked in surprise. She kept forgetting that her moment of both humiliation and triumph had been viewed by millions of people online. Yes, that's me. Suddenly, all the children perked up, looking at her with new interest. A girl with bright red hair spoke up without raising her hand. My mom showed me that video like 50 times. She said it was better than those singing competition shows she watches. Laughter rippled through the group, breaking the ice. Lily smiled, feeling some of her nervousness fade. Well, I don't know about that, but thank you. Today I want to show you that music isn't just for fancy concerts or rich people's parties. It's for everyone, including all of you. For the next hour, Lily did something she'd never imagined doing. She made classical music fun. She played sections of famous pieces, asking the children to guess what emotions or stories they thought the music was telling. She showed them how the same notes could sound completely different depending on how they were played. She let them take turns pressing keys on the piano, forming simple melodies together. By the end of the session, even the most reluctant children were engaged, crowding around the piano and asking questions. As they filed out, many waved goodbye or thanked her with a surprising sincerity. That was excellent, Vivian said as they watched the last child leave. You have a natural gift for teaching. It was actually fun, Lily admitted, surprised by how much she had enjoyed herself. The symphony board is meeting next Thursday, Vivian continued. They'd like you to play something. Just a short piece to formally introduce you as part of our new program. Lily nodded, already thinking about what she might perform. Something that would showcase not just technical skill, but the joy she wanted to bring to these community programs. Later that afternoon, Lily arrived at Bellamy's for her weekend shift. Following her viral moment, the restaurant had been fully booked every night with many guests requesting to be seated near the piano. Diane had worked out a schedule where Lily would serve tables for part of the evening, then play the piano during dessert service. The arrangement had nearly doubled her income overnight, though Lily had made it clear this was temporary, while she transitioned to her new role with the symphony. To her surprise, Diane had been nothing but supportive. You deserve this chance, Diane had told her. Just don't forget us little people when you're famous. As Lily changed into her uniform, Thomas poked his head into the break room. Heads up. Guess who just made a reservation for tonight? Lily looked up. Please don't say Richard Hamilton. Got it in one, Thomas confirmed. Table for 4 at 8 o'clock. Him, his wife, his son, and the future daughter-in-law. Lily's stomach tightened. She hadn't seen Richard Hamilton since the night of the party, though his son Ben had texted her a few times, keeping her updated on his father's continued irritation at her newfound popularity. Great, she muttered. Just what I needed today. Diane said she can assign someone else to their table if you want, Thomas offered. Lily considered this for a moment, then shook her head. No, I'll take it. The evening proceeded smoothly at first. Lily moved between tables with practiced efficiency, aware of the occasional whispers and pointing from guests who recognized her. At exactly 8, the Hamiltons arrived and were seated at one of the best tables in the house with a clear view of the piano. Taking a deep breath, Lily approached their table. Good evening. Welcome to Bellamy's. Richard Hamilton looked up, his expression tightening slightly when he recognized her. His wife smiled politely while Ben gave an awkward wave. The fourth person at the table, Ben's fiancée Abby, looked at Lily with open curiosity. "We'll have a bottle of the Chateau Margaux," Richard said stiffly, not bothering with pleasantries, "and bring an extra glass for our fifth guest." "She's running late," Lily nodded professionally. "Of course. Would you like to order appetizers while you wait?" After taking their order, Lily retreated to the kitchen, letting out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "The fifth guest," she muttered to herself. "Wonder who that could be." She got her answer 20 minutes later when a newcomer was escorted to the Hamiltons' table, Vivian Park. Lily nearly dropped the tray of drinks she was carrying. What was her new boss doing having dinner with Richard Hamilton of all people? Throughout the meal, Lily maintained her professional demeanor, though she couldn't help noticing the tension between Richard and Vivian. Their conversation seemed polite on the surface, but there was an undercurrent of something else. Competition, perhaps, or old grudges. As she cleared the main course plates, she overheard snippets of their conversation. "The board has already approved her position," Vivian was saying. "Your objections are noted, Richard, but ultimately irrelevant." "I simply think the selection process should be more rigorous," Richard replied. "One viral moment doesn't make someone qualified." Lily nearly fumbled a plate but caught herself in time. They were talking about her. Ben noticed her discomfort and gave her an apologetic look. Abby, his fiancée, seemed embarrassed by her future father-in-law's comments. As dessert service approached, Diane caught Lily's eye and nodded toward the piano. It was time for her performance. Lily made her way to the instrument, aware that the Hamiltons and Vivian were watching her. For a moment, she considered playing something safe and crowd-pleasing, but then she remembered the children from that morning, their unfiltered enthusiasm for music that spoke to them. Sitting at the piano, she addressed the restaurant briefly. "Good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Lily. I'll be playing a piece by Debussy tonight called Clair de Lune. It's about moonlight, and I hope you enjoy it." As she began to play, Lily closed her eyes, letting the familiar notes wash over her. Debussy's masterpiece was technically simpler than the Chopin she had played at the Hamilton party, but it required a different kind of skill, the ability to create atmosphere, to make each note shimmer like moonlight on water. The restaurant fell silent as she played, the gentle melody filling the space with a kind of peaceful magic. When she finished, the applause was warm and appreciative rather than shocked and explosive as it had been that first night. This wasn't a surprise performance anymore. This was why people came to Bellamy's now. As she returned to her serving duties, Lily was surprised when Abby approached her near the coffee station. "That was beautiful," Abby said sincerely. "I just wanted to say that I think what you're doing with the community program is wonderful. My family's foundation is proud to support it. Thank you," Lily replied, surprised by the genuine warmth in the other woman's voice. Abby lowered her voice slightly. "Don't let Richard get to you. He's just upset because Vivian found you first. They've been competing over everything for decades." "So I've heard," Lily said with a small smile. "The truth is," Abby continued, "he actually admitted to Ben that your playing was exceptional. He just won't say it publicly because that would mean admitting he was wrong." This unexpected information gave Lily a strange sense of satisfaction as she watched the Hamiltons and Vivian prepare to leave. Richard still wouldn't look directly at her, but she noticed him leave a generous tip on the table, perhaps his own way of acknowledging her without having to say the words. After they left, Diane approached Lily with a curious expression. "What was that all about?" "I've never seen those two dining together before," Lily shrugged. "Apparently they're both on the symphony board, and they both seem to have opinions about my new position." "Politics," Diane said, rolling her eyes. "That's one thing I don't miss about my old corporate job. At least in a restaurant, the drama stays in the kitchen where it belongs." Later that night, as Lily packed up to leave, Ben sent her a text. "Sorry about tonight. Dad's being difficult about your symphony position, but don't worry. Vivian has more influence on the board than he does." Lily stared at the message, a mix of emotions washing over her. It was strange to think that people like Richard Hamilton and Vivian Park were discussing her future, making decisions that could affect her life. She had gone from being invisible, just another server at a fancy restaurant, to being the center of an apparent power struggle between two influential people. As she walked to her bus stop, Lily looked up at the night sky. The same moon that had inspired Debussy was shining down on her now. In just 2 weeks, her life had changed in ways she could never have imagined. She had gone from someone who had given up on her dreams to someone with choices, opportunities, and a future in music again. But with those opportunities came complications she hadn't anticipated: politics, personalities, and the strange discomfort of being caught between powerful people with their own agendas. The symphony board meeting was in 3 days. Whatever happened there would likely determine the course of her new career. Lily took a deep breath of the cool night air, steeling herself for whatever came next. One thing was certain: she wasn't going to let anyone else define her talent or her worth ever again. Not Richard Hamilton or even Vivian Park. This time, she would define her own path. The day of the symphony board meeting arrived with gray skies and a steady drizzle. Lily stood outside the imposing symphony hall, clutching her music folder to her chest to keep it dry. The grand building with its marble columns and sweeping staircases had always seemed like a palace to her, a place for the elite, not for a former waitress with student debt and a tiny apartment. Yet here she was, about to play for some of the most influential people in the city's arts community, including Richard Hamilton. Vivian met her at the entrance, elegant as always in a tailored suit. "Ready?" she asked, giving Lily an encouraging smile. "As I'll ever be," Lily replied, trying to keep her voice steady. They walked through the lobby with its crystal chandeliers and ornate ceiling, past the main concert hall where Lily had once dreamed of performing, and into a wood-paneled boardroom. A gleaming baby grand piano sat at one end, while a long table surrounded by expensive leather chairs occupied the rest of the space. Board members were already gathering, men and women in business attire, chatting comfortably with each other. These were people who moved through the world with the confidence that came from privilege and power. Lily recognized a few faces from newspaper photos or charity event posters, and then there was Richard Hamilton, standing near the window, deep in conversation with an older man. He glanced up as Lily entered, his expression unreadable. Vivian led Lily to the piano. "We'll begin in a few minutes. The board will discuss some budget matters first, and then I'll introduce you." She squeezed Lily's arm gently. "Remember why I chose you? It wasn't just because you play beautifully. It was because you have something to say through your music." As Vivian joined the others at the table, Lily sat quietly by the piano, trying to calm her nerves. She watched as the board members took their seats, with Richard Hamilton and Vivian Park on opposite sides of the table, opponents in some long-standing game Lily was only beginning to understand. The meeting began with discussions of fundraising targets and renovation costs. Lily half listened, her mind focused on the piece she would play, Rachmaninoff's Prelude in C-sharp minor. She had chosen it deliberately for its dramatic shifts between thundering power and delicate emotion. It was a piece that demanded attention. Finally, Vivian stood. "Before we vote on the community outreach budget, I'd like to introduce Lily Chen, our candidate for the new pianist position. As you know, this role combines performance with education and community engagement." She gestured toward Lily. "Ms. Chen will play for us today, and then we can discuss her appointment." Lily rose and approached the piano. Standing before it, she addressed the room directly. "Thank you for this opportunity. Before I play, I'd like to tell you why I'm here." This wasn't part of the plan, and she saw Vivian's slight frown of concern. But Lily continued. 3 years ago, I graduated from Eastman School of Music with dreams of becoming a concert pianist. Like many musicians, I discovered that talent and education weren't always enough. So I got a job waiting tables. I put my piano in storage because I couldn't afford to keep it in my apartment. I nearly gave up. She paused, looking around the room. What saved my music wasn't a record deal or a prestigious fellowship. It was a man trying to humiliate me. Her eyes found Richard Hamilton, who stiffened visibly. When Mr. Hamilton forced me to play piano at his son's engagement party, he expected me to fail. Instead, I remembered who I was and why I play music in the first place. Because it speaks when words fail, because it connects people across all barriers. She turned to the board members. The community program you're funding isn't just about teaching kids to appreciate classical music. It's about showing them that art belongs to everyone, not just those who can afford expensive tickets or private lessons. It's about making sure no one has to give up their passion because they weren't born into the right circumstances. The room was silent. Lily sat down at the piano, took a deep breath, and began to play. The Rachmaninoff prelude began with its famous sharp, heavy chords, like fate knocking at the door. As she played, Lily poured everything into the music. The years of struggle, the humiliation turned to triumph, the newfound hope. The middle section flowed with a gentleness that spoke of possibility, before building back to the powerful conclusion. When she finished, there was a moment of perfect silence before the applause began. Several board members were nodding with approval. Even Richard Hamilton was watching her with a new expression. Not quite admiration, but something close to respect. Vivian stepped forward. "Thank you, Lily. If you'll wait outside, the board will discuss your appointment and vote." Lily nodded and left the room, her heart still racing from the performance and her unexpected speech. In the hallway, she paced nervously, wondering if she had said too much, if she had ruined her chances by being so direct. 20 minutes later, though it felt like hours, the boardroom door opened. Vivian emerged, her expression carefully neutral. "The board has reached a decision," she said formally. Lily braced herself. Vivian's serious expression broke into a smile. "They've approved your appointment unanimously." "Unanimously?" Lily repeated, stunned. "Even Mr. Hamilton?" "Even Richard," Vivian confirmed, "though I suspect it nearly killed him to agree with me on anything." Her eyes twinkled. "Your speech was quite effective. Several board members mentioned how impressed they were by your passion for making music accessible." Before Lily could respond, the boardroom door opened again, and Richard Hamilton himself stepped out. He approached them with measured steps. "Ms. Chen," he said, his voice formal but not unfriendly. "A word, if I may." Vivian raised an eyebrow but stepped aside, giving them some privacy. Richard cleared his throat. "Your playing is exceptional. I knew that from the night of the party, of course." He paused, seeming to struggle with what to say next. "What I didn't appreciate then was your resilience." Lily waited, unsure where this was going. "The Symphony's community program is important work," he continued. "I've agreed to increase our family's annual donation to support its expansion." He met her eyes directly for the first time. "My son tells me you've been an inspiration to his fiancée. Abby is now considering taking up the violin again after years away from it." "That's wonderful," Lily said sincerely. Richard nodded stiffly. "Yes, well, music should be practiced, not abandoned." He extended his hand. "Congratulations on your appointment, Ms. Chen." Lily shook his hand, sensing this was as close to an apology as Richard Hamilton would ever come. "Thank you, Mr. Hamilton." After he returned to the boardroom, Vivian rejoined Lily. "Miracles do happen," she said dryly. "Now shall we discuss your first official performance with the symphony?" 6 months later, Lily stood backstage at Symphony Hall, listening to the sounds of the audience filing in. Tonight was the culmination of the community program's first semester, a special concert featuring both the professional musicians and their students from across the city. Through the curtain, she could see the front rows filled with children from her classes, their parents beaming with pride beside them. There were people from all walks of life in the audience, not just the usual symphony patrons in expensive clothes, but families who had never set foot in this hall before. Rita and Thomas from Bellamy's had come to support her, as had Diane. They sat near Ben Hamilton and his now wife Abby, who had indeed taken up the violin again, and had even joined one of the adult community classes. And yes, in one of the premium boxes sat Richard Hamilton and his wife, still maintaining their social position, but perhaps seeing things a little differently these days. Lily smoothed down her concert dress, a simple but elegant black gown that she had purchased with her first symphony paycheck. So much had changed in such a short time. She had moved to a slightly larger apartment where her piano now held pride of place. She still played at Bellamy's occasionally, but as a special guest performer rather than a server. The community program had expanded beyond anyone's expectations, with classes now filled to capacity and a waiting list for the next semester. Lily had discovered a passion for teaching that rivaled her love of performing. Watching her students connect with music, seeing their confidence grow, it fulfilled something in her that solo performances never had. 5 minutes. the stage manager announced, breaking into her thoughts. Lily took a deep breath, centering herself. Tonight she would play a duet with one of her most promising young students, a 12-year-old girl from one of the city's struggling neighborhoods who had shown remarkable talent and dedication. The girl appeared beside her now, dressed in her best clothes, nervousness and excitement shining in her eyes. "Ms. Lily," she whispered, "I'm scared. What if I mess up in front of all these people?" Lily knelt down to meet the girl's eyes. "Listen to me. 6 months ago I was scared too. I was a waitress who thought her dream was over. Then I was forced to play a piano in front of people who expected me to fail." She smiled gently. "But when I put my hands on the keys, I remembered something important. The music is already inside you. All you have to do is let it out." The girl nodded solemnly. "Like you showed us in class. Feel it first, then play it." "Exactly." Lily stood and offered her hand. "Ready?" Together they walked onto the stage as the applause began. Lily caught Vivian's eye in the wings, saw her encouraging nod. Then she spotted Richard Hamilton in his box, watching with an expression that wasn't quite a smile but wasn't a frown either. As Lily and her student took their places at the piano, she felt a sense of completion. The circle that had begun with humiliation had transformed into something beautiful, not just for her, but for every student who would now have the chance she had nearly lost. The conductor raised his baton. Lily put her hands on the keys beside her student's smaller ones, and together they began to play. Sometimes, she thought as the music soared around them, the worst moment of your life can lead to the best, if you're brave enough to keep playing.